Welcome to Nerd Stalker. We're at the San Francisco New Tech Meetup at Dolby Digital Labs. We're here with a very special guest. And who are you anyways, huh?
How's it going, man? I'm Dave Matthews from Boxee. I'm the product evangelist for the open source social media. So Boxee is essentially the Firefox for your media. Think about, you've got a ton of different browsers you can use, but a lot of people use like Chrome and Firefox because they give more potential or more functionality. So Boxee took a look at what was happening with Front Row on Apple or Apple TV's operating system, or even Microsoft Media Center, and we thought we could build a better media center. So we support all codecs, and we have a social element as well. So that means you can see what your friends are consuming around the media. So you're not really sharing media files, but you're sharing knowledge about what content you're checking out.
So do you guys see yourself then as a competitor to Apple TV or Front Row, or it's just another option? What's happening?
Absolutely, just another option. If you think about what Apple TV does and what Front Row does, is it creates a myopic view into the iVillage. You know, Steve Jobs' world of what he's doing with iTunes and iMusic and downloads. It's all DRM. We were trying to get rid of it, but still it's saddled with that because of the studios. Boxee will play any content, whether it's a file that you ripped from your own library or even streams like Netflix and Hulu. So when you think about Apple being a closed ecosystem, Boxee is totally open source. So anyone, even you, can develop for it. So Apple TV doesn't have very good codec support. It just has H.264. The Xbox 360 added some DivX and Xvid support, but not the full codec. Boxee, you'll never see a codec error. We can play any codec. So whatever you throw at it, we've got the necessary decoders, and we keep adding more and more. So Netflix was a recent add to using Silverlight. So that's available on the Mac platform now, and eventually the Ubuntu platform. Just because we're waiting for Netflix to support some of these platforms. So in some instances, we're limited to the service provider, especially with DRM content, but we're trying to keep it as open as possible and allow as many people into the experience.
That's a huge announcement with the Netflix integration thing too. Are you guys, was that really a difficult thing to pull off? Or?
We did it in 3 weeks, and what's really amazing is Roku did, literally they had engineers on staff with Netflix working with the Roku device. Right. I can't even imagine what happened with the Xbox 360 rollout, but no one knew that in order for the Xbox 360 to use Netflix, you had to have the gold membership. Wow. So a lot of people don't pay that extra monthly service for gold, right? So what Boxee did was even better than what any of their hardware partners rolled out with. So we got our hands spanked a little bit for that implementation. You don't have to manage the queue on the web. With all the other hardware manufacturers, you know, the Netflix, Roku, LG, you have to go to a website and build a video queue online, and that queue shows up on the hardware device. But with Boxee, you can manage the queue on the television set with one remote. So we did a nice job with their next generation of what they wanted to do with Netflix. The core of Boxee is really discovery of media. So I've got my library here set up of all my content, and I can go through my movies and take a look at it. So Basic Instinct, I can read more metadata around it. But if I want to sit and recommend it to my friends, they can watch this movie via Netflix, so they don't even have to have the content on their hard drive. Perfect example, over Halloween, I was watching a rip of Ghostbusters. I was going old school, and I recommended it to all my friends on Boxee, and they were able in just one click to watch it for free via Hulu. Now they had to watch an ad, and there was stream quality, so Flash versus my DVD rip. But it took what I had owned in my own library, and I was able to share that essence or that click to play with all my friends. So that's what we're most excited
about. Some of these partnerships, if I can call them partnerships that you have. I noticed that, you know, there's Netflix that you mentioned, there's Hulu that you mentioned, the integration with CBS. Another big one was Last.fm, the whole music experience. What other kind of things can we see down the road?
So we'd love to see Pandora. We're talking to Tom, the CTO there.
Oh wow,
huge. That'd be cool. And search as well. You know, Boxee is really concentrating on being the user interface at a 10-foot level. And think about it, your cell phone, you got a 10-inch UI. With your laptop, you have a 2-foot UI for the web. But television really has been a holy grail on how do you get that 10-foot interface right. So we're trying to, by being open source, let as many people as possible play in our world. And you can write scripts to do this with, or you can get into our source code. So even RSS feeds. Any user of the service can go to the 2-foot UI on the web for Boxee TV and add an RSS feed. So I've taken stuff that Boxee hasn't found yet as part of our media aggregation and added my own RSS links. So I can just jump into my own special content. Basically, you can build a channel, much like TiVo would let you build a season pass. So it's a pretty cool, clever idea.
You got into a couple of the items from some of our viewer questions. Sean 808080, he asks, is this open source?
Yeah, the code base came from XBMC. So Xbox Media Center is what we derived our code from. And this is old school. It's a 4 or 5-year-old project. A lot of us took our original Xboxes, the black ones, ripped them apart, put a mod chip in, or we reflashed the firmware so we could run rogue code on that Xbox. So we took that underpinning. It was source code that had a lot of capabilities, very cool. Mad props out to my XBMC buddies out there. And we added a lot of the new modern stuff, right? Flash playback, Netflix, Hulu, etc. Right. So there's a little bit of it that's closed because we have to respect our content providers and any of the encryption. And we keep the social aspect of it our own proprietary network, because you need to communicate via one social platform. You can't have multiple platforms out there. But everything else is all open source, GPL, so you can get in there and literally rewrite the code. And what's best about it, in the true essence of open source, if we like the changes that you've done, then we'll implement them back into our track as well.
Another question too was about performance on these various platforms. You know, they talked about Boxee on Ubuntu versus, you know, other sorts of Apple TV. So can you talk about that? And where are you in the stage of development of Boxee? Is it alpha? Is it, what are we at?
Yeah, we're still at alpha. We want to go to beta in 2009, but we're still early stage on this. And the Apple TV, it's just a gigahertz CPU. Right. So when you navigate around the menus, it's going to be a little chuggy, especially if Boxee's pulling in the cover art. So that happens as a background process. Okay. Boxee can scan any one of your NAS drives and look for media that arrives. And as soon as it shows up, we show it recently added, so we can show you new downloads or new rips that you've done. And that goes with music or movies, or television shows as well. So a gigahertz machine, when it's doing that background process of getting artwork and you're trying to navigate, you can see it get a little chunky, especially when you're streaming media. Right. But on a Mac Mini, you know, you can do full 1080p. So it just rocks away when you have that dual core CPU. Got to remember the Apple TV is just core solo 1 gigahertz, essentially a Pentium M. Now you're running Ubuntu. Chances are you can run an AMD chip, or, you know, X2 or X64, and really get the thing humming with Boxee. The most important thing with an Ubuntu box for Boxee is making sure you have an OpenGL capable video card. And we need OpenGL 1.4 or 2. And that's how we're doing all the shading and layering. And if you noticed, when there's media playing in the background, the cover art can ghost on front of it and the recommendations. So you can still have the movie file going and essentially multitask, even though it's just quick bits of information. We had to make this Web 2.0. So obviously social now, tweets, Facebook, status updates, etc. Boxee has all that built in, and you can even plug in your friend feed, your Tumblr, your Twitter account. So as you consume media, you can have it tweet every song you play, every movie you watch, or you can just have it tweet, as I do when I recommend stuff. So if I recommend stuff to friends, it'll add that to my Twitter. So essentially, Boxee could change your Facebook status update with all the media you're consuming, if you wanted it to. So for me, the most exciting thing about Boxee is the fact that our product development is driven by you. You guys at home, go to our forums, you can go to our blog, we monitor Twitter, you can follow at Boxee, B-O-X-E-E, or blog.boxee.tv, and you can literally interact to help drive our product. We are hackers, we want the best media center possible, and that's not going to happen without you guys. If you want to just give tips and tweaks and do bug reports to the forums, that's cool. But if you want to get in and download the source code, you can do that as well. So the challenge is laid out to you guys. Let's do some plugins, let's get some search, and if you have a fancy algorithm, let's plug it in Boxee.
That's great. I look forward to seeing what you guys have coming out. It should be really cool. Thanks so much for your time, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.